The Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper. And now, Coach Bill Clark.
Welcome to the Coach Bill Clark Show, presented by Buffalo Rock, Dr. Pepper, Molly Robinson, along with Landrum Roberts. I'm Pat Smith. Coach Bill Clark and Coach Clark, another exciting weekend of college football. Let's start in Tuscaloosa, where Bama continues to roll. Big win on the third Saturday in October.
Yeah, I think we start with the defense. Obviously, Tennessee leading the country in scoring. We talked about some of the really neat things they were doing. Tennessee was doing with 12 personnel. I think just top to bottom, what we've seen out of Alabama, obviously we're going back to the Florida State game and the improvement. I think you got to start with their defense. Even though Tennessee managed to score some points, I think really held them up under, obviously, the average, but physical, smart football. I thought they tackled well. Obviously, they had the big play on the goal line, which helped. But I thought the defense played well.
Anything in particular scheme-wise you saw from Kane Womack?
I thought they did a good job mixing it up and for the most part, keeping balls in front of them. I think Tennessee has improved. We talked about this Monday on y'all show, was the fact that they were doing, they were huddling in short yardage and doing some things. There was a reason they were leading the country. So I think just all in all scheme with not a ton of time to work on, it didn't like they didn't have an open date to get ready for them. But defensively, fundamentals, getting lined up, tackling play after play after play. That's where the coaching's at. That's what people don't understand. Ball gets down on the goal line and you keep playing and they're not in the end zone. And so I always said, till they're in the end zone, they're not in the end zone. So, all those things that I think fundamentally effort. Once again, I said, the head coach is now involved. And I said that frantic way he is on the sideline, that's what it looks like.
Coach, I understand that screen passes and the way they run certain sweeps and things of that nature with the wide receivers, it's just an extension of the running game for Alabama. But Alabama's only averaging 125 yards per game. Does that concern you as a coach looking long-term when you absolutely have to have a yard or two running the football between the tackles?
Yeah, it always does. I mean, from the start of football, that's been important. There are times we've had you got a quarterback or you got a game where it's all throw, but it's like the turnover battle. There's going to be a game every once in a while when it's 95% or whatever, the turnover. Same thing with running the ball. It could happen, but you're going to need that in games to win the game, to close the game out. Whatever that is, you got to be able to run the ball. So it's a concern. They are running it, but they got to run it better, I think.
Defensively, heading into this game, you got a talented quarterback, South Carolina's Lenore Sellers. The offense is in flux. You got a coordinator that's fighting for his job.
Yep.
What is your biggest fear as Kane Womack heading to Columbia this weekend?
I think just what you said. You've got a guy who is a freak athlete who throws tacklers off. You're at their place. They are the cornered animal. You got coaches' jobs being called for. You've got losses. We talk about UAB. When these guys are on scholarship, we say it every week, they're on scholarship. These guys are getting paid a lot of money, and they are being told they might lose their job. You think they're not coaching their butt off? And go relax for a second, because that's what it looks like when you relax. Now, sometimes you're just that much better, but in the SEC world, they're not. You're just not that. And if they don't come ready to play, they're going. You would think South Carolina will be ready.
We talk about the Auburn Tigers a lot this week. Not a lot of reasons for, I guess, fans to be excited about the future of Auburn football.
They're close, Pat.
Very close, according to their head coach. But they got playing an Arkansas team that they lost by 3 at Tennessee.
Yeah.
They lost by 3 to the only undefeated team in the Southeastern Conference in Texas A&M. This is a dangerous game. Just talk about what you saw from Auburn against Mizzou, and can they go and put points up against a very high potent offense in Fayetteville?
We said this before, and we don't like saying they don't have an identity, or what is the identity. They're still searching for that. Now you've put it out there that you're putting your quarterback, you got a 2-man race. And now I was somebody that played multiple quarterbacks at times. I don't know if I knew it was the guy. We didn't do that. But anytime I felt like I needed that spark, we did do that. So what does that do for the team? Does that create more urgency, or does that create doubt? And how talented is the number 2 guy? I don't know that that's a bad thing, but I think it's because who are they? This past week was the quick passing game. It's just they're struggling offensively. The defense is probably playing good enough to win. what's the thing that they got to do to get it turned around?
I think we all notice the inevitable conclusion of what's going to happen for Hugh Freeze in his tenure at Auburn. I'll go ahead and ask a question. Why do you believe, Coach, it has not worked for whatever reason? It hasn't worked for the most part.
Yeah, I said that a few weeks ago, and who knows? I mean, it's kind of it's always a nebulous thing sometimes. What is exactly? I said that my thoughts were multiple pass first guys in your ear, and he said it. I mean, I got two other guys I'm listening to, and they're pass guys. Okay, what does that mean? Well, if I'm trying to be run, play action to fit my quarterback, and some guy's a system guy, and I lived this world with Eli Jenkins at Jack State, and I'm John Gross, who was my offense coordinator, who came from the system, understood the system, had gone to Kentucky. We were there as a high school coach, 4 college coaches were there, really got it. And quickly we said, if this is the quarterback, he's not a system. He was on the defensive side of the ball his freshman year, even though he played quarterback at Parker. He's going to run. We're going to throw play action. He's got a great arm, and we're going to throw a quick game. John goes, I'm in. But that was the conversation versus one guy saying throw, another guy saying throw. And you're saying that doesn't fit. We need to be play action, run game, deep shot. I mean, whatever that is, there's something that's creating that. What is it? That's my opinion.
So on Monday, I don't know if it was a planted question by the media, but they asked Hugh Freeze, would it be important for you if your athletic director came out and gave you a vote of confidence?
Yeah.
And he kind of laughed. And he said, well, yeah, it would be very important. From your perspective as a former coach, do you ever felt like you needed your boss at any particular time to come out and give you that public support that Hugh Freeze is obviously begging for?
I do think there was context to the question. You gave the context. In his defense, he was answering a question. No. I've never been there, and never wanted to be there. And I get when you're trying to keep your team together, and I gave him props last year for I never saw them when they were losing looked like they weren't disciplined, so I gave him props for that. That's going to continue to get harder. This Saturday is I think how many games have been make or break,
right.
But where do you lose your guys? Now they're being paid, all that stuff, but they're kids, there's emotion, they're listening to all this mess on the social media. That's the worry, and I know that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to help his team, but you've asked for a vote of confidence, and what was it, crickets? So that ain't good.
No, it's not. You look at this Arkansas team, Taylor Green, what he can do offensively, playing at home as a defensive guy, and that's been what's carried Auburn.
Yeah.
Even in the games they've lost, it's been the defense that's kept them in games. Defense travels, but how long can this defense sustain the level they're playing against when they're looking at their teammates on the offensive side of the ball, not scoring points, not moving the football?
Yeah, well, I lived in that world.
Isn't that just human nature? Eventually, you're going to have that letdown week?
It is. Now, what the defensive coach, because I've done this, I don't care what they do. You are paid, and of course, we used to say that as a scholarship.
Right.
You're paid to shut them out.
Right.
I mean, used to games were 1-3-0 and 7-0. So I don't hear that crap. No offense, Landon, but
that's fine.
If I'm the defensive coach,
I'm here to ask the crap.
I'm saying that's my job as the coach.
Yeah.
Now, they're also human, and they are going to do that. They are going to get sick of it, and because I got sick of it. I got tired of being, first or second in defense and last in offense. But you've built them to try and withstand that. Now, there's other things, like we said, every time they get a chance to score, they get a chance to score. I don't care how good you are. Let them keep doing it. They're going to score. This is a guy who knows how to score, Petrino. They've got a talented quarterback, and they're scoring on everybody. So these are the games that really worry you defensively when you're not scoring. Now, they're not very good defensively either. I don't think Arkansas is very good. So we're going to see what breaks. No, and it wasn't a question of that is a worry. The defensive coach is trying to battle that, but it does become a thing at a time.
Coach, when you get into a season and you're 7 games in, I know some people say, well, stats are for losers, but Bill Parcells always says your record is what your record says you are.
Yep.
So you have the Auburn team where they are currently. Is there a possibility, even a win against Arkansas, a win against Kentucky, Could this team get on a row and all those things that happened over the last 6 weeks of the season will be in the rearview mirror, and this team will now be the football team that many of us thought it could be?
Absolutely. I just nothing is done until it's done. And the game that is played with emotion and heart and all those things, if he could get a win, then does that turn in? And hey, we're going to win out. They've got the talent. There's not some huge separation between them and the rest of them. So it's just, can they find the magic? The problem here is there's a consistency of they find a way to lose in this tenure. So that's the problem. You've got a track record of finding ways to lose versus finding ways to win. Now I can go back to the guy's history and he's won games, but you're not finding those ways.
He just hasn't won games there.
He hadn't. And that's, as I said about last week about Trent Dilfer. Your record is your record, and that's what you get paid to do.
I think it's a foregone conclusion with Hugh Freeze, as I mentioned, at Auburn. But you said make or break weekend. We're talking about a make or break weekend for an Auburn team going 500.
Yeah.
Or going to a bowl game.
6-6. Yeah. That's what we're looking at.
Well,
Still got home games: Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Alabama.
We can't speak to the people that make the decisions. We can say probably based on where they are, there's a good chance, especially in today's world, of making changes.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, Landrum. But you never know. There's good people on the schedule. If they give him that opportunity, it may be already done.
Coach, you just brought up UAB. Impressive win with everything that program has been going through the last year and a half. Unsuccessful on the field, but Alex Mortensen given an opportunity, going up against a very good opponent, an opponent that you know very well, the Memphis Tigers, number 22 in America. They come to Protective, and the Blazers, first time since you knocked off a 12th ranked BYU team in Shreveport. First time that UAB's gotten a win against a ranked opponent. Yeah,
so, I've got guys on the Memphis staff. Didn't talk to them that week and have not talked to them, well, I guess early in the year because they were rolling in some good texts. But so first, this was a big week for me because it was the Children's Harbor game, and I don't want to not talk about that, and I didn't probably mention it as much. But, we started the game back in 2017. Names of the former patients of Children's Hospital, Children's Harbor patients on the back of their jerseys. One of the best traditions in college football, in my opinion. And something I heard Thursday was very interesting from Coach Henley was what that game meant to him. And I talked to Leanne Crow, just not what the game just meant, but also those kids and their interactions on Thursday. So I know what I've seen out of our players when we played above who we probably were La Tech in 2017. And so that game was huge. Now, I'm not saying that to take away from what Coach Mortensen and the staff did, but they took advantage of a Memphis team that probably overlooked them. But let me tell you, if you watch that game, the game was well coached. Quarterback played unbelievable. Defense played well. They tackled. Now, there was missed tackles and there were some things. And, as I told Coach Mortensen and Coach Henley after the game, I said, you're living right down there at the end of the game. But that's what you do. You find a way to tackle them, to keep them out of the end zone, and you find a way to win, and that's what they did. So, hats off to the staff and Coach Mortensen and all of them.
And by the way, you do it with a backup quarterback and Ryder Burton.
Yeah.
Who his demeanor, he's one of those guys in his demeanor and the kind of the way he carries himself with his confidence. It was described to me by one of the coaches, kind of like Baker Mayfield. But this is a guy who's intense. I was worried he was going to get a concussion headbutting a guy coming off the sideline without a helmet on.
Yeah.
Just one of those guys you want playing for him. You could tell he played with a lot of confidence.
My gosh. He stood in there and made throw after throw and accurate. Especially in this RPO world they live in. And if that guy can do that and make the right reads, it's pretty impossible to defend. So I was super impressed with that. And this was not a fluke. They led. They led the whole game. I don't dominated. Obviously, Memphis lost their quarterback in the first half, but UAB was playing with their second-team quarterback. So all things even, tons of credit. Obviously, now they got an open date and they got some time, and we'll see. Now we're going to get to see. But unbelievable win, huge win, and just how it all went down was really impressive.
All right, Coach, Smart Bank, one of our fine sponsors here on the Bill Clark Show, and I know those guys are near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, from getting to be on the board with the guys at Smart Bank, and we say it every week about who you surround yourself with. The folks at Smart Bank are great people. They know the people that come in, got all the amenities of the big banks, but the small bank feel, and really appreciate the support of Smart Bank.
Coach, the coaching carousel, it started early this year throughout college football. I believe Virginia Tech was the first one, and then Oklahoma State was soon right after that. Now we've got Florida. Billy Napier loses his job. A lot of speculation out there. There could be some more in regards to the SEC. Just put ourselves in your shoes as a coach. Now, granted, you were never in that position of being on that proverbial hot seat.
Not on the hot seat, no.
Yeah, well.
But the other way, it's tough. I mean, so let's just use what's going on now.
Okay.
Let's go Kiffin, right? Now, of course, he enjoys chaos.
Yes.
I mean, let's just say that.
He's
with
a
his
drama
hot
queen.
yoga shirt off, day of the game.
Drama queen.
That was a new one.
You never did that?
Hot yoga, but with a shirt on.
Oh, I thought you did goat yoga.
You loved a good pair of yoga pants, if I remember.
Yes, now we're getting into bad territory. This is that ridiculous.
You would
time.
wear capri pants, right? Like the Miami Dolphins head coach.
And the little slip-on leather
You
shoes.
used to do that?
That's like really. Now we're just in bad territory. I'm not a fan of his gear.
Did you ever think about wearing a tie on the sideline?
Never,
Okay, I was just asking. Did your dad wear a tie
never,
when he
Have, you,
coached?
have you
Okay.
shopped the Cam Newton collection?
never.
All right.
All right, I'm sorry.
These are easy.
Sorry, Coach.
Our ridiculousness.
Yes, the ridiculousness that we refer to often. All right, so we're on
Kiffin.
Lane
Lane
Kiffin.
Kiffin.
Lane Kiffin. So
He loves
I
chaos.
started that. I take blame for that. I did start it, but I think the point of what's his team going through, right? And as I always said, you want to be the guy they want. That in this world where they're going to fire you tomorrow because he lost the last game, you need to be wanted, right? So you're balancing out the want to be wanted because you need to be wanted, and it helps you with your program versus they're saying you're gone or you've took a job. And your kids, I mean, that's all they can read. So every day they're reading. My coach who recruited me, now granted, it's a little different world now with NIL. They're leaving more, but still, how does that not hurt you? And then how much do you really need it and like it and want it and really consider it? And I think that's the questions we got with him.
Is it about for a guy like Lane Kiffin? Because getting to an SEC championship game, now something he hasn't done, getting to a college football playoff, he hopes to do, but hasn't done. Is it all about where's the likelihood of me getting to a championship for a guy like him? Because it seems like now, when everything has changed, the portal, NIL, the commitment that Ole Miss has made to Lane Kiffin, that you got just as good an opportunity right now to win one at Ole Miss as you do in Gainesville.
I think you'd have to look at what's going on for the last number of coaches in Florida who cannot win. Now, his ultimate goal is to be where he could be to win championships. That line has really gotten blurred with what's been able to be done at Ole Miss, Indiana. He's got to answer that question, and go, what can Florida give me that Ole Miss can't? Is it X amount of money? Whatever. Is it facilities? Because I know that was a thing. I think recruits are going everywhere. That used to be the thing. Man, I'm in Florida, and there's just more people, more players, which I've always said about Georgia is such a huge advantage. We got what, 5.5 million? They got 11.5 million in the state.
Fish in a barrel.
Yeah, and you're the team. But in Florida, there's Florida State, Miami, But I think that's the question he's got to answer. And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that because it's not a for sure. You go to Florida and you just got more resources. So I would think you would stay where you were if all things are considered and you're happy and you know the lay of the land.
Yeah.
So
you were a wanted commodity many, many years in your coaching profession. Did you ever have a conversation, not you personally, but maybe your representation, that maybe somebody, if certain things happen, might be interested in your services? Did it ever come into play during a season for you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was – you start getting calls midway, and it started really 18. Mine was I was happy, and that's what people really didn't ever understand, that I was really – because I'm from here. I also had state retirement. So that was such a huge – no offense to UAB, but that was a huge – it's how I got to UAB. It's what kept me in the state of Alabama. Everybody has their own story. It was a huge story for me. Now, I came to a point where, all right, if somebody wants me bad enough, you've got to come get me. And what these people want you to do is sit down for an interview it's like I use the Nick Saban story, right? Everybody wants the story where I can turn it down, which is what Jimbo ended up in. I can turn this job down because they want me so bad, and I can get the things I need, right? Versus you're one of 5 guys, you do a great job in the interview, because then you got to go compare yourself to what everybody else has in that league. Because that's who you're going to get. And I used to say, man, I want to beat everybody else, but we got to win the league. That's why we broke it down on champs. That's what I'm going to get judged on is championships, right? So that was always the question for me. Now, as my dad used to say, the job's open because it's not good. Somebody lost generally. Now, sometimes you got a Nick Saban, but most every time somebody lost. So can I fix that? Now, I enjoyed that. I liked the idea of going in to fix it, but it was, all right, if you want me bad enough, come get me. Now, that's kind of sounds like an arrogant thing to say, but I wanted them to want me. I'm not sitting there with 5 other guys when I got a good job. UAB was what I wanted. Now, take the politics out, but home, we were doing what we needed to do, win chips. And I always felt if somebody wanted what we were doing, now the end started getting like that, but I had a back that was messed up, and I didn't do it in a long time. I was tired. So that was my story, and everybody's got their own stories. And, I think, and last time I'll say, the question is, can you hit it right when you're in that mode? Let's just use our guy at Tulane. He has not burned himself out on being a head coach. I mean, he's only been a head coach for a short amount of time. That's really what you want, because the stress of doing that job will wear you down. And in my opinion, unless you're a robot like Saban, you've only got so long to me, if you're a normal human being.
So the conversations, and we'll just keep using Lane, for example, he's represented by Jimmy Sexton.
Yes.
People at Florida, they're reaching out at this point in the season, I'm guessing, to Jimmy Sexton, and they're saying, hey, Lane's at the top of our list. This is what we're prepared. Are they getting that detailed just to get that listen, and this is how serious we are? How are those conversations going?
Yeah, and so let's just people what happened with Sexton. People are like, well, oh yeah, it was such a thing that you went out and decided I'm going to get to Sexton, because here's what Sexton was doing. He was getting the AD. He was getting the AD, which is, let's just use Lane at Ole Miss. They called me that week. But Sexton had the AD. Now, once again, wasn't necessarily looking to leave, but he had these connections with all the people up here. So, but back to your point, yes, that's how it starts. It's all between the agents, and he is listening because you have to listen. So he's either said, I'm not willing to listen at all, but if you're not willing to listen at all, you say that first thing. Like Freeman, I have no interest. Because if you have no interest, that's what you say.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're playing it out. You want to hear, and you also like the idea you feel like your people need it.
Yeah.
So
our couple of sponsors we want to talk about before we get out of here, Webb Concrete Building Supplies and also Donahue Chevrolet.
Yeah, so let's start with Phil Webb and Webb Concrete Building Supplies. Biggest thing for them, obviously, we all knew Phil Webb and the guys with concrete out. Now they have 7 locations on all the different building supplies. Pell City, Jacob, my son, sells flooring there. So we know Phil and know that company well, but just great folks, and they got all you need in the building supply world. Now, Donahue, ridiculous deals, as I always think of you two guys.
Thank you.
Truck month. So, Landrum, what's our latest on truck month?
You got the 2500 HDs. It's truck month. You get all kinds of savings right now. The best thing to do, Coach, is just go to DonahueChevrolet.com. You check out some of their existing new inventory, the specials they got running monthly, and also their pre-owned inventory is pretty good. And they got some great commercial vehicles you can get a steal on.
I'm going to need to look at that.
You need to.
My Tahoe's clean before y'all
Good.
ask.
Fantastic. That is great.
You're worried about it.
Want to ask you about Dabo Swinney and the Clemson program. They're a team now that's completely off the radar. They're under 500. They're not going anywhere in a really bad ACC this year. In regards to staff changes and things of that nature, he's about to have to make some very difficult decisions on that staff because they're not going to get rid of Dabo. They owe him too much money. So everybody else is going to feel the wrath. Talk about that from a coaching perspective, how difficult that is to make those moves.
Man, I can't imagine. I cannot imagine that. That was always like my worst nightmare, that somebody comes into my office and says, you got to get rid of somebody. But that's the world. That's the world he's about to be in. So, I think if you built it as I tried to build it with family, and that you're gonna work for me, but you don't work for these other people. You work for me. And when you lose that, now when you don't perform, and that's really what this can be about. It's not just, man, I don't like you. We just didn't perform in this area. I think it's the problems when the head coach doesn't want to make the move. And I think back to Tuberville back in the day. He's having to get rid of close friends. And I know that's the world Dabo wants to live in, is these are like his family. And so it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough.
Another type of situation, but you take a guy like John Summerall at Tulane, let's say he takes an SEC job.
Yeah.
How much of his staff is he going to be allowed to maybe bring with him? And some of those guys might not be invited to go on the trip, right?
Yeah, they're definitely not going to all be invited because he's going to think, hey, I got this guy because I could only pay $300,000 and now I've got $1 million. So I can go get a higher level guy. No offense to this guy. I might bring him in as an analyst. But he's going to want his people like Joe Craddock. And Joe had some other chances to take other jobs, who was with me at UAB, great coach. But there'll be a lot of guys that he probably would offer him a lesser job. And there's going to be guys he thinks can do it. So it'll be a mixture. Once again, and I've had those conversations, I will make the decision, can this guy do what I need him to do? If you want me, you will not name any of my coaches.
And it's interesting because I go back to when Georgia was getting ready to play Auburn. There was a story that came out. It was kind of the behind-the-scenes story about Kirby Smart interviewing for the Auburn job.
Yeah.
And obviously Auburn people love the idea of taking the Alabama defensive coordinator and hiring him because Kirby was an up-and-comer. But Kirby felt obligated to stay with Alabama and be an assistant coach in the national championship game where Auburn wanted him to come immediately.
Yeah.
How difficult is that going to be during this cycle now that you have an expanded college football playoff? Back then, it was just obviously a couple teams, then expanded to 4. But now you've got 12 teams. So that just means there's more coaches that's going to be on the so-called list for a school, but they're not going to be able to go potentially because their current school might be playing in the college football playoff.
I think there's a lot of history. Nick Saban kept a lot of guys that had other jobs, and they worked both. They worked the phones from the office, and they've proven it can be done staying. Alabama's done it with tons of guys. It's going to be, it would be a question if they just said this is a make or break for us. You'd have to make that decision. Obviously, if you're dealing with an NFL guy, I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a great defensive coach in NFL, and it's in their contract to stay. And he could drop down, but if he wanted to go back to NFL, he's breached his contract. So they have to stay if they're ever going to coach in the NFL again, and they sure can't go to another NFL school. But they could do it, but they would have to be released, and that doesn't usually happen.
I'm curious about Vanderbilt's Clark Lee. You wonder, post-Diego Pavia and some of this core of players, and I respect the heck out of that guy and what he's been able to do, but do you strike while the iron's hot? You have an affinity. It's a special fit that he has there in Nashville, but Penn State calls.
Yeah.
I mean, tomorrow's not guaranteed, much less next season.
That's right.
You go ahead and you probably take it.
You would think. I was always the loyal, I built it, it's mine, it's ours. Hard. It would be hard for me, but at the same time, he knows restrictions or not restrictions. Does he feel like it was mostly Pavia? Does he feel like, man, I got it on the roll? But what's tomorrow? Who gives me the best chance to keep doing what I want? And what does my family want to do? I'm moving them to are they good moving there? But it is literally, as I say all the time, you're a genius or an idiot. It's like that.
I've never been to Happy Valley, but it seems like Nashville is more appealing to me.
Yeah, I would think so.
Maybe so.
Yeah. Coach Safely, what you guys got going on? You got a big trip planned, right?
Yeah. We're, obviously we said, I always take Alabama first, but we're in the midst of talking to Georgia and Louisiana. We got resolutions there trying to get the law passed.
Awesome.
We've had great folks, Coach Smart, Coach Key, all kind of folks in Georgia that are helping us. So we got to say our prayers for our meetings coming up because we're trying to spread it.
Absolutely. Go to coachsafely.org for more information. I want to thank Jimmy Lee and the great people at Buffalo Rock for sponsoring this show each and every week. Brought to you by Dr. Pepper and all the great products they have at Buffalo Rock. For Molly, that's Landrum, that's Coach. I'm Pat. Have a great week. We'll see you next week on the Coach Bill Clark Show presented by Buffalo Rock.
This has been the Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper.